Good day, sir. This is my reporting about the global interstate system. The state has traditionally been the subject of most interest to scholars of global politics because it is viewed as the institution that creates warfare and sets economic policies for a country. Furthermore, the state is a political unit that has authority over its own affairs. In other words, its borders are recognized by other countries. It is assumed that whoever is in charge of those borders has the right to determine exactly what is going to happen in their country. Today, globalization of politics created an atmosphere where the ideas of the nation-state, state sovereignty, government control, and state policies are challenged from all sides. With globalization, some scholars suggest a decrease in the power of the state and that other actions are actually becoming more powerful. These actions include multinational corporations and global civil society organizations like the Red Cross that cross national boundaries. Global governance in the 21st century. There is a series of specific factors behind the emergence of global governance. The first on the list must be the declining power of nation-states. If states themselves were highly contingent mass influx, it would open the possibility of the emergence of some form of global governance to fill the void. A second factor is the vast flows of all sorts of things that run into and often right through the borders of nation-states. This could involve the flow of digital information of all sorts through the internet. Then there are global problems that single nation-state cannot hope to tackle on their own. One is the global financial crisis and panic that swept the world periodically, which nations are often unable to deal on their own. Indeed, some nations have often been and are being victimized by such crises. Nation-states have long struggled to deal with problems like this through various interstate systems, but the more recent trend toward the development of more truly global structures and methods of dealing with various sorts of issues and problems. Effects of globalization to government. One of the key aspects of state sovereignty is the government. It is a group of people who have the ultimate authority to act on behalf of state. Each state has its own right to self-determination and that other countries should not intervene in the affair of that state unless there are extraordinary reasons to do so. Other countries must recognize sovereignty or the right to govern one's own territorial borders. The decision, the conflict, and the resolution of that conflict are done through the institution of government established and codified in that particular state, whether or not through elections. Elections, especially in democratic society, provide the leadership of the state. In addition, the policy is developed and implemented in the interests of the people of a state by a specific government. A civil society within a state can also act as a counterweight or as a supplement to a government. Civil society includes the private economy, educational institutions, churches, hospitals, fraternal organizations, and other non-profit organizations. There have been several challenges to the government and ultimately to state autonomy. These challenges divided into four: traditional challenges, challenges from national or identified movements, global economics, and global social movements. For traditional challenges, external intervention can generally be described as invasion by other countries. For example, when Saddam Hussein was the ruler of Iraq in 1990, he decided he was going to take over the oil fields of Kuwait. He invaded Kuwait and took it over. As a result, he was dislodged by an international coalition led by the United States. Internal political challenges can also happen. For example, after the Arab Spring in Egypt, a new constitution was recreated and a government was elected. That government was more fundamentalist and rejected the notion of a plural society that included religious diversity. Challenges from national and identity movements. The next challenges are part of a national identity or movement. It is important to know that a nation has cultural identity that people attach to, while a state is a defined entity due to its specific boundaries. Global economics. The third major source of challenge comes from global economics. Global economy demands the states to conform to the rules of free market capitalism. A specific example to expand global economic influence is the use of IMF and the World Bank in forcing government reforms in poor country. Furthermore, the regional economic development efforts focus on expanding free trade and market liberalization. Global social movements. Finally, we have global social movements. Most of the time, they are not seen as a threat, but they definitely challenge state sovereignty. Social movements are movements of people that are spontaneous or that emerge through enormous grassroots organization. These social movements are transnational movements, which means they occur across countries and across borders. Therefore, states have less control over them. For example, human rights movements create a public sentiment, value, and agenda. The idea is that there are certain rights that states cannot neglect, or generally what we call human rights. The relevance of the state amid globalization. The state is a distinctive political community with its own set of rules and practices, and that is more or less separate from other communities. It has four elements: people, territory, government, and sovereignty. The first element of a state is a permanent population. This population does not refer to nomadic people that move from one place to another in an indefinite time. This permanent presence is one location is strengthened by the second element of a state, as defined territory. A territory has clear boundaries. A territory is effectively controlled by the third element, government. The government regulates a relation among its own people and with other states. This means that the state is a formally constituted sovereign political structure encompassing people, territory, and its institution on the one hand, and maintaining its autonomy from other states on the other hand. Institutions that govern international relations. There are several international organizations that governments of countries around the world and individuals participate in. This includes the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, NAFTA, and NATO. There are also non-governmental organizations promoting social and economic growth, peace treaties, and military alliances, the UN and NATO. Global politics entails relationship of countries and different governments and non-governmental organizations. The United Nations is one of the leading political organizations in the world where nation-states meet and deliberate. However, it remains as an independent actor in global policies. Maintaining international peace and security became the central mission of the UN after the war. Up to today's day, the UN is the major force in the governing interstate relation. According to the UN, peace and security are maintained by working to prevent conflict, helping parties in conflict make peace, peacekeeping, and creating the conditions to allow peace to hold and flourish. The UN also has what is known as the Security Council. There are 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council: the United States, Britain, Russia, China, and France. In addition to the 5 members, 10 additional countries joined the permanent members for 2-year terms, making a total of 15 countries. Non-governmental organizations. Another example of an international organization that was developed out of war in the Red Cross. It is considered as a non-governmental organization. NGOs are not tied to any country. This allows them to operate freely throughout the world. They provide emergency relief such as food, water, and medical supplies for those whose homes or towns have been destroyed by disaster or war. They also monitor the treatment of prisoners of wars and go to conflicts to make sure that no war crimes are taking place. Global Economic Association, the WTO and NAFTA. The next group is an economic association, WTO. It is made up of 162 countries around the world and was created with the goal of increasing free trade. Countries therefore can buy and sell goods from one another without placing taxes on imports or tariffs. In addition, tariffs are used to protect businesses and companies inside their country. Through good in nature, WTO is not without criticism. Another famous economic organization is NAFTA. This is an economic treaty between the United States, Canada, and Mexico in which the 3 countries trade freely without taxing each other. NAFTA is not without critics either. Globalization and globalism. Globalism refers to the network of connection that transcends distances of different countries in the world. Globalism is thin. As it becomes thicker, globalization happens. This means that being able to connect countries in the world through a more dynamic and faster way is globalization. 4 distinct dimensions of globalism. First, economic, second, military, third, environmental, and fourth, social like economic globalism. The 3 other dimensions also became thicker and faster as globalization intensities. The enormous speed of potential conflict and threat of nuclear war is an example of military globalism. The last dimension, social and cultural globalism, involves movement of ideas, information, images, and of people who carry ideas and information with them. Informationalism. This technological paradigm associated with computer science and modern telecommunication that replaces industrialism is called informationalism. These are technology, the media, and the internet. This is not to say that we do not need to produce material goods such as factories, clothes, and food. Rather, exchanging information and knowledge, which is clearly immaterial goods, becomes central in the contemporary world. Global citizenship. Citizenship is associated with rights and obligations link the individual to the state. It also has to do with our attitude. We need to be willing to engage and to spend time and efforts to the community of which we feel part of. Global citizenship does not automatically entail a single attitude and a particular value with globalization.